Hello and welcome to the Resource Town Hall hosted by the Family Connections Task Force. My name is Diana Tachibana and I will be a host for today's event. We are thankful that you could take the time out of your busy schedule to join us today to hear about the resources our member organizations may offer and how they can assist you, your loved ones, or those you work with. Our goal is that you will leave today's virtual event with community partner contacts, feelings of connectedness and support through organizations in Nevada. Next up is Rosalys Peel, the author of Mike and Me, an inspiring guide for couples who choose to face Alzheimer's together at home, presenting on caregiving support and strategies.
Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. I want to say I feel really privileged to be part of the task force. And some of you may have the book that's being shown on the slide right now. If you attended the Caregiver on the Homefront conference last August, that was brought about to help caregivers and give them some insights to what they might be able to do to help with the care of their loved one. Can I go to a full screen if that's feasible? Might be more interesting than just the one slide I've got. If not, we'll just keep that one slide up. At any rate, if you've got the book, which you may have, I just want to remind you that you want to keep an eye on those insights at the end of each chapter. It's designed to be a guide, so it's not just a read once. It's go back to your guide and get some insights on how you might be able to manage caregiving a little bit easier. Little introduction to me. My husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2002. It was a 9.5-year journey. And needless to say, when he was diagnosed, we were both a little overwhelmed. How will we do this? And then on top of that, in particular, he really wanted to do this at home. So that was another whole challenge. Can we do this at home? It turned out we did manage that journey at home, but that process of how to do that, it sent me looking for a book. And I really could not find a book that could help me with that. So I was journaling, started to take a few more journal notes than before about how I did things so I could remember what I was doing when and perhaps share it with others later down the road. So that's what happened. 3 years after Mike passed away, I did write a book and I took advantage of those journal notes. So I implanted that in each of the chapter to give people a time frame for what happened when. The book is designed to just give little stories. So I tell a little story about an incident that happened, and then you can see the time frame in the course of that journey. But you can also go to the insight and say, aha, this is the learning moment. This was what was learned from that experience. So the book is now there to help people as they go through their journey. It turns out that it's not just helpful for people who have Alzheimer's, it's very helpful for people with dementia and other caregiving situations as well. So I want to give you a couple of tips out of that book. I don't want to just sort of talk about the book and not give you some ideas of some of the things that are helpful. It was interesting because when I was involved with caring for Mike, I was also teaching at Swedish Medical Center as a parent educator here in Seattle. And one of the things I was doing was working with John Gottman, a well-known couple relationship researcher. So we were creating a program to help couples to keep their relationship strong around the birth of a baby. And so consequently, I was on what I could do to keep Mike's and my relationship strong. And those little tips are embedded in the book. And I'm happy to report that Mike still knew me at the end of life and that we were very much in love. And I credit that to those couple relationship tips that I was learning and implemented with Mike and I, even when he was very late stages of Alzheimer's. So today, I want to give you a couple of those tips so we don't walk away without any little insights from the book. And the first one I want to mention is one that we all know, but we all need to be reminded of, which is called Catch 'em doing something right and tell them about it. And it's so easy to point out what somebody's not doing right. And in fact, we know what changes behavior is telling people what they do right. So I'm going to give you an example that could apply perhaps in a caregiving situation. You have a meal tray that somebody hasn't eaten very much. The most natural thing to do is point out what they did not eat. You did not eat your vegetables. You didn't touch this. You didn't touch that. Instead, what we know really works is to say, whoa, you drank all your milk. That's great. I'm so glad you enjoyed your milk. And then the next day you say, oh, I'm glad you tried your toast. That's terrific. So you don't point out what they do wrong. You tell them what they do right. And it was pretty incredible for Mike and I. It eased the tension between us because I was always praising him for what he did rather than what he did not do. So that's a reminder, something we all know in our personal relationships, but particularly as a caregiver, that's an important one. One more little tip, something that master marriages do in relationships, and I think can apply to caregivers in all situations. So one of the things that happens in a master marriage is they have a daily stress reducing conversation. Sounds simple, or maybe it sounds hard if you've been home working together all day. What's the point of a daily stress reducing conversation? But take a little time at the end of the day or routinely over lunch or whenever you have your conversation, and just touch base with your caregiver, and just, or with the one you're caring for, and just say, oh, how things go today. And it may be as simple as, wasn't that a great lunch we had? Or I'm so glad you got a phone call from so-and-so, or this was a little stressful for me, or we did really well in the transferring you today, or things went smoothly at physical therapy, or whatever you want to talk about. It's also a time to talk about things that really did not go so well. So have those little daily stress reducing conversations with your loved one. And I think you can also implement that in care facilities. Just a little touch base as you go off shift to talk about your day and how things went. So those are 2 tips. Those are research-based tips for relationships for couples, but I think they apply to all situations, including those who have a long-term illness and need long-term care. So in closing, I just want to give you all a little bit of appreciation for everybody who's caregivers. You've come through a tough year. You've worked really hard. The task force team has been incredible. So I want to give everybody a little appreciation from me for what you've done, and close off with my usual Zoom close off this year. First of all, I want to say stay healthy, because we're not through this pandemic yet. So stay healthy. I want to encourage you to stay safe. And the third one I want to say is to stay in love with your loved one. Thank you.